we just typed in Seattle Cornerstone into Google. And downtown Cornerstone was the first thing that came up. I think it was the second meeting in this room before the church launched. We got in the elevator and it was just us. And I think I just looked at her and said, anything could be up there when those doors open. And luckily it was Paul Avaska when the doors opened, and shook his hand, and it was just, and from there on we just knew that God had led us to this place.
So towards the beginning, there was probably 8 of us sitting in a room, and Pastor Adam was talking about the fact that most churches over 10 years old weren't attracting new believers.
One of the primary ways that the Lord has been working in my life this past year is helping me learn dependence.
I need Jesus every moment of every day. I need to rest in the gospel and to work that out in my life. And that's really just been life-changing.
When you're isolated, you feel like you've got it. That, oh, I've got this life thing figured out. Like, Jesus is this guy that I know, he's good, he's great. He can kind of come in and out as I choose. This past year has taught me just dependence on him.
I needed the Lord and I loved the Lord, but I didn't quite have that same love and need for a church community. So through this last year, walking with people at DCC, I've really seen that God uses no conduit like he uses the church, and that really transforms lives.
I've watched a group of young people that I'm privileged to be a part of live by faith for the past year or so.
Jesus has totally stripped down my pride and dependence on my emotions. What this year has been as a year of Jesus stripping away all of the things I try to find my identity in, which are all meaningless, and giving me real life in him.
Jesus is telling a story through his church, that he is making his name known through his church, and it's so much about people coming to know him and being that process of sanctification. Jesus is just growing people and using them to impact the city.
I have never experienced a church culture where you're being stretched and pushed to share Jesus with unbelievers all of the time.
We are all about the people of Seattle. We're all about Jesus' kingdom, and meshing those together, we can help Jesus' name and fame be known.
Capitol Hill has a lot of people who are looking for fulfillment. It's a unique place that we get to live and be on mission where people are searching.
That I have always had a heart for missions, and that I would be willing to move across the world to tell people about Jesus, but I didn't know how to go across the street and share the gospel.
That's kind of what we're all about. That's why we're doing what we're doing. We're wanting to spread the gospel. And when people respond, that's exciting.
On Sundays, we met in what we called the underground bunker. It was next to the underground Seattle tour, and what was especially neat about it, it seemed that asbestos was growing on the walls. It seemed dingy and dirty. Literally bricks were falling off the walls.
And when the sermon went late, or we took a little longer cleaning up, we would actually be part of the underground Seattle tour. Crowds of people would start walking by the little window while we were cleaning up, and it was just a really weird, kind of funny experience.
We had our inaugural turkey bowl, and we did that on Thanksgiving morning, and we had nearly 50, 60 folks out, and we had about 35, 40 people actually playing flag football, and it was really neat to see how tough some of the chicks from Cornerstone really are.
We were down at the Seattle waterfront and in a very public place, and seeing our church community there with people telling us stories of God's grace and transformation in their lives. People have been Christians a long time, and people who have just found Jesus. Having that be a testimony in the midst of our city context was really powerful.
The first time we met for a community on Capitol Hill, I was just really nervous about it, and I wasn't sure that people were going to show up. And by God's grace, a bunch of folks showed up, and it was a great night. And I met with Adam, I think, the next morning for coffee, and I remember telling him, I can't believe that it worked. Like, this thing worked. And he just kind of looked at me and he was like, of course it worked. Like,
community has been hugely impactful in my life this past year. Just getting to live out week after week, multiple days every week with the same people. You get to just experience life together with all the highs and the lows.
I would say that we've lived differently this year because it's been made more clear than it has in the past what church community really looks like.
I don't think I could have possibly learned all that I've learned this year without being in community.
Seeing people come to Christ, it's really fresh, and just being in community even with a couple of brand new believers.
I think just simply that God is faithful and He is good.
Jesus knows what he's doing with his church.
I've found great joy in walking with a people group who is focused on being saturated with the truth of the gospel.
Kind of living out the book of Acts.
I've just seen God transforming lives. We've seen people come to know Jesus, and that's just been a really awesome opportunity to be a part of a church that is living on mission.
Jesus' name is being made known.